this $5 billion you've been mentioning that you might be able to pump back into the House version of the budget. How's that going to work?
Well, we have had some committee meetings the last couple of weeks, and we're mining for gold, and what we're doing is number one, I have a bill that has the deferral for the education, and there's some other deferrals. That'll bring a little bit over $2 billion. We have a bill that what they call a speed up bill, that it speeds up or prepays some franchise tax, motor fuels tax, alcohol and beverage tax, speeds that up, and that'll be over $1 billion. We have the bill at, we just are getting it back from Ledge Council today, and the comptroller is helping us cost it out. But that will be over $1 billion. We're also counting the $830 million that we're getting from what a lot of people call the Doggett Amendment that was freed up at the federal government. And we have some other things. Rob Orr has a bill that we heard that could bring in about $500 million. So we have things like that. It's non-tax revenue that we are able to take advantage of. I hope we can pass it.
Right. Doggett's Save Our Schools Amendment, that wasn't built into the budget already?
It was not built in the House version. I think the Senate did build it in, but we did not.
So the amounts that you just said, how far do you think we are? I mean, are we close to that $5 billion you want to get to?
We're 4.3, 4.5, and frankly, I think that's probably as far as the House is willing to go. I know the Senate is further than that, but I have met with some people in the Conservative Coalition, the Republican caucus, and if we, number one, they don't want us to put backs of Texans as far as taxes or fees. There are some fees that we have built in, but nothing like was built in 2003, when over $1 billion of fees were put on that bill. Our introduced version has about $100 million of fees that the industries have come to us and say, to help us market our cattle, we need to do such and such, and but we'll pay for it because we'll get that back in return, so we can market our cattle all over the world, things like that.
We can talk about the Senate, $5 billion that they want to try to raise as well a little later. But I just wonder, is the $5 billion that you're talking about, is it significantly different than what they're looking at?
No, it's basically we have this, had some ideas that LBB had given us since September, and we kind of picked and chose some of those.
So House freshmen, what is their take on everything right now? I mean, are you seeing a different opinion than when we started out?
Well, I think the reality is beginning to come real, or people are realizing that we're cutting our schools, we're cutting our nursing homes, we're cutting our people that want to go to college, we're cutting their ability to go because we're taking the financial aid. I think that's beginning to be realized by a lot of the members. Now, I'm not going to say that all of the members feel that way, all of the freshman members, but I think in a whole, as a whole, that they will be coming around and say that, that we need to do these things. We're making major cuts. Even if we can bring in $4 to $5 billion of new revenue, new non-tax revenue, we'll still be making major cuts. We'll be still making $17, $20 billion worth of cuts. That's pretty major.
With the Senate, they've been talking about, a budget that maybe is significantly less severe when it comes to cuts. Is that realistic?
Well, the House version is the amount of money that we have available from general revenue and also, of course, federal funds. We're anxious to see the Senate version when it comes out. And I know they went to the printer today, and so we'll get a peek at it next week.
Do you ever get the feeling that, maybe some people in the Capitol or Texans across the state think of the House as maybe a little bit worse off? I mean, maybe the bad guys sometimes?
Well, I don't. I think we're probably the reality check guys. This is the reality. Now, Of course, we wanted to get our bill over to them, off the floor and over to them as soon as possible so we could get into conference. They've had a little extra time to examine those, and they have built some of those things in our budget, in their budget. I don't believe they have passed legislation or have kicked it out of their committee yet. We laid it out. We first laid it out the week before last. We did not have our substitutes ready for yesterday, so we laid out our ideas to the full committee yesterday, and we will be voting those bills out next Monday, hopefully, Monday at noon.
How is it possible, we've been talking a little bit about speeding up the business tax. How can you do that?
Well, we've been working with the industry, and we have letters now signed by all the major industry groups to support. And what we're doing is they will be paying like a quarter ahead of time, and some of the taxes that are paid monthly will be paying 25% of that monthly ahead of time. And so it's really what they call a speed up. So we'll be collecting that amount that would normally be paid by the taxpayers in the next biennium. They're being paid. Those taxes are being paid the biennium that we're working on.
I know the House has been talking recently about the possibility of selling state lands. That's something that the Fiscal Matters Subcommittee in the Senate has also talked about. That leaked report listed several of those, and several of those have been on the governor's land report for several years in the past, but it's something that has never really been sought after. I mean, a real action. Do you think that that's something that we could actually do this time?
We thought about putting it in the Fiscal Matters bill that I'm carrying, and Renee Olivetta, who was former chair of Ways and Means, has a bill to do that, and we'll be looking at that. We're not looking at that in Appropriations Committee, but we'll be anxious to see what he does.
Are you still saying no to any tax hike?
We do not have any tax hike anticipated in the bill that we passed out, nor do I see a tax hike on the bill that comes out of conference.
Are you personally saying no to using the rainy day fund in the upcoming budget?
You know, Josh, I was able to get legislation passed out in the House to use $3.1 billion of the rainy day fund. Probably the hardest thing I've ever done in the legislature, and that is being used for our current biennium to pay our current bills, to pay the school districts what they're due this summer, to pay state employees what they're due this summer. I felt like it was a proper use of the rainy day fund. I would say that the House has no stomach to go into the rainy day fund further than that.
But the Senate has said that senators have said that they likely wouldn't pass what the House shows right now. They've said they have more interest in the rainy day fund.
And I understand that, and I hear what you're hearing too. I have told the Lieutenant Governor and Representative Steve Ogden that the House does not have the stomach to use any additional money out of the rainy day fund for the next biennium.
Is that for ongoing expenses or for all expenses?
I'm saying to balance our budget for 12 and 13. I do not see the House voting to use any additional rainy day fund.